After very long COVID delays, House of the Dragon is finally here, and I'm gonna dive into full spoilers for this discussion. So if you haven't seen the first episode, forget watching me and go watch that. I'll say this, that was a very solid premiere episode. I was curious gauging by the Lord books if people would find the start a little too slow in comparison to Game of Thrones' wicked fast-paced premiere episode. But I think the showrunners nailed this one. Way better pacing and smoother transitions than the first Game of Thrones episode that just flew through time. Both premieres have their own hard-to-stomach scenes. Instead of Bran being pushed off that tower after stumbling across the Lannister twins going at it, this time it's King Viserys choosing his unborn son instead of his wife and cousin in that gruesome childbirth scene. If you're wondering why Queen Aemma Arryn looks so Targaryen, it's because her mother, who also died giving birth to her, was full-blown Targaryen. King Viserys given that choice to make by the Grand Maester is one of the few new additions to the story that were never in any books, as well as the mention of his prophetic dragon dream, where his son with a crown will be born. Viserys isn't as fleshed out as the rest of his family in the books. Everyone around him is a louder personality, so a perfect opportunity for House of the Dragon writers to fill in some blanks. There's gonna have to be a lot of creative liberties taken to make it to 5 seasons. But anyways, Viserys made the wrong choice in having his wife killed for a potential heir, because baby Balon Targaryen, named after Viserys' father, died soon after the mother. This adds a whole new layer to Viserys' character. I expected a passive king who was way too patient with his brother for his own good, but in this prequel, he has a darker side to him. You guys know how much the book's author loves great characters. Not inherently bad, but not good enough qualities to be admirable. With that heavy portion of the episode out of the way, let's get into everything else. The very opening scene we got was a flashback to the Great Council of 101 AC in Harrenhal, a location that's in half ruin thanks to Targaryen conquest. We're exploring way much more lore than anyone could have expected, with young Princess Rhaenyra aged up for the show like Dany and the Stark kids were for Game of Thrones. The timeline is a little muddled up in my brain. I'll put a link right now on your screen if you want to check out my timeline breakdown for the show, but this is certainly not a little 7-year-old princess like depicted in the books, who gets announced as the heir to the Iron Throne. We get to see a lot of established relationships, like the friendship between Rhaenyra and the Hand of the King's daughter, Alicent Hightower. And on the other side of the coin, old conflicts, like the one between Prince Daemon and the Hand himself, Otto Hightower. These Hightowers have been around court for a while, previously serving the old King Jaehaerys that we saw in the Great Council. Otto served as his hand in his later days, and his daughter read to him and kept him company after the old king's queen died. So that scene where Otto's ordering his daughter to King Viserys' chambers with that book is a callback to that. There's quite a few direct quotes from the lore books. A lot of fun Easter eggs for book fans, like Daemon claiming the women of the Vale, where his wife hails from, all look uglier than sheep, then referencing his lady wife, Rhea Royce, as the bronze bitch. That's a reference to House Royce being all about bronze. With how the writers are fleshing things out, I wouldn't be surprised if Rhea Royce also gets a bigger role in the story. She should appear in one of these episodes to explain why Daemon has no children of his own. For the first time, we get to see the dragon pit on screen before being crumbled to pieces. This is where the Targaryen's dragons are housed in King's Landing. The guys with the staffs look to be the show's version of dragon keepers. This is an order of 77 guards created by the old king to look after the dragons. A pretty shitty job, but Syrax seems to listen to them well enough. Rhaenyra is the first to ride Syrax, so the dragon might be around the same age as Rhaenyra. Alicent does mention that she is growing quickly. The only other dragon we get to see in this episode is Daemon's infamous Caraxes, who has a similarly dangerous reputation. Rhaenyra, as smart as she's portrayed in House of the Dragon, hasn't heard of House Cole. Most haven't, because they're a very minor noble family in the Stormlands. Sir Criston Cole defeating Daemon in the tilts and in the melee is a big deal. Daemon's the badass of this generation, but knights hailing from the Stormlands are historically built for battle like the Baratheons. We get a good look at Lord Bormund Baratheon in the tourney too. He asks for his niece Rhaenys' favor and does his little butthurt speech about her not being queen, then immediately falls on his ass thanks to Criston Cole. The Baratheons, as well as Valerians, were the loudest supporters for Rhaenys. The Starks also wanted to see Rhaenys over Viserys, and in the last moments of this premiere episode, we get a quick shot of Winterfell's current lord, Rickon Stark. Don't get too used to him, he's as minor as it gets in the lore. This is a Targaryen and Hightower story. Just for clarification, Otto Hightower is not the head of his family. He has a powerful older brother ruling the south and the Reach in his tower. We see him too in this episode when every lord is called to swear to honor and protect her claim to the Iron Throne after Viserys is gone. In that hilarious scene where Daemon antagonizes Otto further by challenging his son to a joust, we see him ask for Alicent Hightower's favor right after beating him. You can't turn down a prince. The tourneys format played out a little different than others, but there's no set rules for tourneys. Some allow challengers and champions to pick out their battles, some don't. There's nothing serious to try and pick apart. What I can't figure out is what those little eggs were during the small council. Some form of attendance, I guess. The Iron Throne is quite literally and figuratively tearing apart King Viserys. Very faithful to the books, because the melted down swords are very real and are known to cut up a few kings. In his grief, Viserys decided to call his daughter down in front of the dead dragon Balerion. This dead dragon flew to Westeros with the Targaryens from Valyria, where the Targaryens originate from, before it blew up. It lived through 200 years under Aegon the Conqueror and King Viserys himself. Viserys was the last Targaryen to ride Balerion, the Black Dread, before it finally died. Viserys never attempted to bond with another dragon again. We don't even know if that's possible, because a dragon rider can only bond with one dragon that it can control. Viserys goes on to drop the biggest twist for book readers. He claims Aegon the Conqueror united the Seven Kingdoms for the first time because of the dragon dream prophesizing the White Walkers' invasion in the future. A Targaryen needs to be on the Iron Throne with dragons to save the world. That's new. There has never been mention of Aegon having visions in his dreams like other Targaryens have had, including Dany. Viserys says Aegon called his dragon dream the Song of Ice and Fire. Coincidentally, not only the name of the book series, but the name of the prophecy Rhaegar Targaryen mentions in the books. Daenerys' older brother Rhaegar believed his son was the promised prince that would save the world. Rhaegar was known to play the harp, and when asked if he would write his son a song, he says that he already has one. His is the Song of Ice and Fire. This all takes place within one of Dany's visions. This moment between King Viserys and Princess Rhaenyra passing down the Targaryen secret through generations of heirs is not a retcon. If Aegon the Conqueror only shared this with his sons, the previous reasoning mentioned for his conquest still stands. Aegon always had his eyes on the Seven Kingdoms, but was pushed to war after his neighboring kings annoyed the hell out of him. George R. R. Martin was doing some promo interviews recently, and the mention of prophetic dragon dreams that the Targaryens experience was brought up. I'll link the full Vanity Fair interview in the description, but here's a section out of it. The interviewer asks one of the showrunners, Ryan Condal. The show's primary characters are the 5th King of Westeros, Viserys, and his daughter, Princess Rhaenyra, who would inherit the Iron Throne, without question, if only she was a man. Something passes between them that is stirring discussion. Can you explain? I think the Game of Thrones nerds were very interested and intrigued and compelled by the secret that Viserys tells Rhaenyra, connecting Aegon, the first king of the family and original Westeros conqueror, with the prophecies that we know about the Long Night and the others, aka the White Walkers, and the Night King coming out of the north, and how maybe the Targaryen dynasty was aware of it long before we think they were. These prophecies that ultimately played out as the climax of the original series. The show suggests that not only are they known by the Targaryens 200 years before, but they've been known for about a century. I think they were very intrigued by that. A lot of them said I committed a Song of Ice and Fire heresy, but I did tell them that came from George. I reassured everybody. What is the significance of these prophecies, George? Unless I've missed it. Is this something you wrote in one of the books? Or is that an invention of the show? It's mentioned here and there, in connection with Prince Rhaegar, for example. I mean, it's such a sprawling thing now. In the Dunk and Egg stories, there's one of Egg's brothers who has these prophetic dreams, which of course he can't handle. He became a drunkard because they freaked him out. If you go all the way back to Dany's the Dreamer, why did she leave? She saw the doom of Valyria coming. All of this is part of it, but I'm still 2 books away from the ending, so I haven't fully explained it all yet. Viserys telling Rhaenyra about Aegon's Song of Ice and Fire prophecy was George R. R. Martin's idea. Huge for a prequel to spoil an unfinished main story. This is reminiscent of the Night King appearing in Game of Thrones. Martin's clearly heavily involved behind the scenes, giving us book spoilers and advising the House of Dragon crew. Good news for us, because every season that he was involved with turned out to be a classic. Episode 1 of House of the Dragon was a very solid start. That birthing scene messed me up a little, but they pulled it off. After HBO blew $30 million on the Long Night prequel episode that no one will ever see, it seems like they just went movie quality for House of the Dragon to avoid any other failures. I know a lot of you watching will be vocal in your opinions in the comments, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on the premiere. I'll see you guys in a few days with another video before episode 2. Thanks for watching.